Welcome back, whānau, and we are here for session number 4. Really been looking forward to this one. Before we kick off, I'm actually just going to open a handover for our karakia to be done.
Kia ora tātou. Kia ora hoki koutou. E titiro mai nā, e whakarongo mai nā. Ki wā mātou kōrero i tēnei rangi. Tēnei ka mihi ake kia koutou. Ka mihi ake hoki ki tēnei whare. Kua tau mai nei mātou. I raro i te tuanui o tēnei whare. Nā rea kia tuku nā karakia. He honore, he kororia, he maunga arongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Āmini.
Āmini.
Nei rā mātou te matua whae tamata wairua tapu o mātou ana hera pono. E o mātou tīpuna poropiti o te ao Māori, te pane ariki, te poropiti whakamitinga. Te tohu o te wairua, te whetu, mārama, te whae, te ngira o te ao. Ngā taonga whakahira ka tū mai nā koutou, ki rungi te whenua tapu o mana ariki. Kua tau mai nei mātou a koutou mokopuna tamariki whakatipuranga. Ki raro tuanui o tēnei o mātou whare, e manaaki nei, e awhi nei a mātou. Ko te kaupapa nui kei mui a mātou i tēnei wā. Ko te kaupapa o te tai ao, te pū tai ao, tai no hoki ki roto i ngā āhuatanga, i whakarite e koutou e o mātou tīpuna. Kia heke mai te rangi ki te whenua ki te rangi, e tū hono ai koutou, i roto i ngā āhuatanga, anei rā ko te ao hou tēnei. E titiro mai nā koutou, e tiro ana mātou, e pēhea ai, te tū hono, te tui, i ngā āhuatanga, o te taha wairua ki roto i tāta taha, o tauiwi i roto i ngā mahi. Ko ngā taonga tuku iho i waihohi ake koutou ki a mātou, anei rā ko ngā rorohiko, ko ngā waia, ko ngā mihini a tauiwi hei oranga tonu, hei awhi i a mātou, ki roto i ngā rā e haere ake nei. Kia mau ai wā koutou tohu, wā koutou taonga, i waiho ake ki a mātou. Kia tae wā mātou mokopuna, mātou tamariki, te kawe i roto i ngā āhuatanga o te ahou. Tēnei rā ka tuku nā whakamoemiti ki a koutou i tēnei wā. I raro i a koutou manākitanga, whakamana hi a mātou kōrero e koutou, i raro i te mana o te matua, te whaia, te tama, te wairua tapu. Āmini. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora mai. Kia ora. So, before we kick in and introduce our beautiful speakers, our kaupapa for this session is Vision Mātauranga and AI research, and just very excited and privileged to be here alongside these beautiful wahine to have this kōrero with you today. A very important kaupapa here in Aotearoa, that being one of mental health, and we're here to explore how AI research can work in to support and I guess uplift the well-being and the mana of our people. How does AI look and work with Māori knowledge and ideas from a holistic point of view when it comes to health? AUT's researchers are working alongside Māori health and wellbeing experts to develop an AI tool for improved diagnosis and prognosis of mental health. So before we launch into the questions, I'm actually going to hand the rako over. Maybe could you do a small introduction of yourselves?
Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou, tēnā koe. Ko ai a hau no te aroa me mātātua tōku pāpā, no te apauri, tauranga moana me tainui tōku māma. Ki konei ko te kōrero, ko te kairanga hau, i tēnei kaupapa, ara he tino koa hau, ki tēnei wai, tēnei. Mō tēnei kōrero. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Ingoa.
Ko Margaret.
Kia ora, Margaret.
Yeah.
Tēnā tātou katoa. E hoki ai ki runga i tōku maunga tapu. E tū mai rā ki roto i a tū hoe tamakai moana o maunga pōhasi. E heke rā ki roto i tō mātou awaroa, ko tauranga roa tērā. E heke iho ana ki runga i o mātou marae, te kau mārua. E heke mai ki roto i o mātou awa nui me o mātou rangatira. E tū mai ki roto ia te waimana kāku. Ka tū ai tēnei mokopuna o tamakai moana, o Ngāti Rere, o Tamaruarangi, o aku marae te kau mārua, aku hapu te kau. Ka tau ake, ki runga i te waka o mātātua, ka puta atu ki waho, ka puta ki te moana nui a toi, e tui ai ki roto i ngā iwi katoa, e tū mai rā, mai nā kuri a whārai ki tihirau, ko Māori Stewart tōku ingoa, nō reira, e hono ai ki roto i te haua uru, e hoki ai ki roto i te ro mātou maunga tapu, maunga taranaki, tai no huri ake ki taupiri maunga, kia mani a poto, kia tainui, ka tū ake anō ko tēnei mokopuna i roto i aku whakapapa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, e tui atu i roto i nā kaupapa nui, e pāna ki te kaupapa nui kei mui a mātou, ko Māori Stewart anō a hau. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Ko Tawatu Maunga, ko Te Raparapa Hoi Te Awa, ko Hei Te Tūpuna, ko Waitaha Te Iwi, no Te Arawa Te Waka. Tēnā koutou, Sandra Pōtaka, ahau, and today I'm representing the Waiariki Māori Women's Welfare League as one of the stakeholders for this kaupapa. And so it's been an interesting time that we've had on it and looking forward to this panel.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou. So before we launch into it, I've got the duty of talking about the beautiful long name of our research project. So forgive me here. I'm going to try and read as well as I can. So the project name is the New Zealand-Singapore Data Science Research Program, Computational Neurogenetic Modelling for Diagnosis and Prognosis in Mental Health, led by the beautiful Dr. Margaret. So let's start there.
Oh, co-led.
Co-led.
Aye, so
Co-led.
my responsibility within the research is to bring aboard leaders in Mātauranga Māori. And that role then enables me to communicate with people like Sandra and Mātauranga, and we have a few others involved. And so from there, I then connect in with our computer science team and here in AUT, and obviously it's an international research project, so we have our team from Singapore. And my role really is to bring people together so that we can share both sets of Māori in terms of Mātauranga and sets of Rero Hiko computer science and with our colleagues. I think today for me is the role is more about letting Māori and Sandra kōrero about the journey that it's been like for them to communicate Mātauranga Māori with our colleagues and amongst our own people. So the different types of responsibilities and accountabilities that we have in terms of rangahau. I think that's all I need to share for now, eh?
Yeah.
So Sandra, maybe you are the next one on the journey.
Okay, so briefly, right from the beginning, the intention was to have Māori stakeholders. So Margaret approached us as the Waiariki Māori Women's Welfare League because we have a wide reach and we have people in the Western professions and who are with rongoa Māori and other traditional Māori healing. So we thought, oh, well, we could get on board. So I'm mandated by our 300 odd members to speak on their behalf within the project. So they're invited to anything that we have, but generally a few might come to our wānanga, to our hui, they might participate in things, but what I do is communicate between Margaret and the science team and my team of people at the League. What we've found is that we've been able to contribute to the major milestones that we've achieved. So we had an engagement plan, which originally was to engage with Māori, but we found it's been useful in engaging with the Western science team. So we're following the same principles. And that led us to develop a roadmap, which is how we're implementing the engagement plan. So we're kind of trialling it with the scientists so that when we do roll out into the Māori community, we have a better idea about what we're talking about. So we've had to learn about the technology, and we have experts like Māori who have been able to share with us their knowledge of Mātauranga, Māori, Wairuatanga, and much, much more. And so we've also shared that with the science team.
It's just incredible. I feel like this is groundbreaking mahi that you're working on. How's it been for you so far, Māori?
Firstly, I just would like to acknowledge those before me. All our tipunas before me, as well as all our leaders before me, and all of our tohungas before me. And so you would have heard me in my karakia. My karakia started the journey. And so technology for us starts from the karakia. And it starts from the karanga in the karakia. And from there I was acknowledging the tohungas long before me, long before my time. So who am I? I'm one of those mokopuna. And so firstly I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Pauroto Naropo, because I'm his replacement. Don't I look pretty? Kia ora te nane. Kei te kororo hau moho. Kia mohi o mai ai koe. So I would like to acknowledge his presence here today. Also acknowledge my brothers who have blessed me to be here in this position. Why do I say that? You would have noted from my profile that I have a big, huge, long name as well. And it's called Tanatana, Tino Rangatiratanga, Sovereign State. So I come from my own state, and we have rangatira in there long before I get to this seat here. So in saying the levels and the whakapapas, you would have heard it in my whakapapa as well. That's all Mātauranga. That's already inbred in our brain. So part of our brain, our inanaro, has already been fed all the information. The information transfers from us out. And so the links between the relationship and partnership, which is what Dr. Margaret and Fire Sandy are trying to incorporate, is actually how we bring both the tikanga side, the wairua side, and the Mātauranga side, as well as the scientific side. And so if we bring it all together, it becomes one and becomes holistic. So that's why I just want to acknowledge that. And I want to also acknowledge I'm not that good. I'm not as good as Pauroto. And so I will say that he is the master in this field. And why do I say that? Because he's the leading tohunga in the field. I am part of the whole team and the group, and my role and responsibility is more based on the practical side of it. And so, as you see, I can hold this, and that becomes equipment, but it's a taonga. And without this, there's no Māori. Without the light, there's no Māori. Without what I'm talking through. And these are all the magical energies of Mātauranga. And so it actually adds and benefits what we need in order for us to move forward. So in acknowledgement to the tohunga side of us, that's basically just what I'm sharing. There is a framework that we wrap around. So when you hear my karakia, you hear my whakapapa, you hear how I travelled from my mountains to my rivers, to my waka, and out to unite with all my other whanaunga, all of that is encompassed in a taonga. And that's the taongas that we talk about, ngā taonga tukiwa. That's what's encompassed in Mātauranga. And that's what we got to give to the partnership. So, what am I trying to say? Well, without us, that partnership won't move forward. And so, I want to acknowledge the team that Margaret and the Singaporean people and all the people who I've met since we had our wānanga at Ira Moko Marae. I want to acknowledge how they've actually being able to come together and look at a tool that can benefit our people long before they identify there are issues within them, within the health sciences. Nō reira, tērā pēr, kua rahi ake waka kōrero, I tēnei wā. Kia ora tātai.
Kia ora. I might jump back to you now, Dr. Margaret. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what is NewCube and how will it help mental health?
It's a cube. I might track back a bit. When I was first introduced to picking up the role as the rangahau, I thought, oh, I don't really know much about artificial intelligence, so I admit that. And what sort of grew my curiosity was the very thing that Māori said, which is about the potential to prevent mental illness among our people and then be a part of that journey thereafter. So that was the first little hook into the NewCube. So I knew it was this prototype, this particular tool that could predict that concept. And then I thought, okay, do I know much about machine learning? No. Do I know much about my new colleagues? Not really. But because when you're in academia, it's good to be curious. So that's why I went down that journey. It's been a great journey so far in terms I have really enjoyed sharing knowledge between the two groups in terms of science and from Western science and Mātauranga Māori, and then identifying the different layers of Mātauranga Māori. I then thought, okay, who can I sort of consider to be a part of the journey to share the knowledge of understanding hene naro, or the brain, from both a technical biomedical perspective and then from a Mātauranga Māori perspective. Obviously, Pauroto's name dropped up. Okay, tohunga status, they have these ideas similar to the pixels within the NewCube in terms of these little tohu or signs that take us on different directions. I don't understand this side, but I know someone who does. I don't really understand this side, but after the last 2.5 years, I've got a kind of, I would say I'm familiar with those sets of knowledge, and I can write about it, which is probably a good thing. And then I can sit in places like this and kōrero about it. So the NewCube at its very, I think it's the simplest form. It's a tool that will enable our people to be seen first on the trajectory of potential mental health illnesses. And what's been really beautiful about the 4 wānanga that we've had with stakeholders is that many of our stakeholders have actually seen the potential for it beyond mental health, beyond hene naro. And that's exciting because, you know, the pūtea or the budget from MBI only goes so far and people want more to happen. So for me, the NewCube has brought the opportunity to contribute to the wellbeing of Māori. So I'm an advocate for tools that enable us to do that. What's clear though is that the tool is only as good as the people involved for developing it. Hence, this is probably one of the very few research projects that I've been on where we're not actually working with our Māori as subjects, we're working as Māori as co-designers, co-influencers, co-designers and innovators towards the prototype and further types of models that are being researched by our computer scientist team. So I don't think that's probably enough, isn't it?
That's beautiful. That actually gives me a lot of hope for the future to hear that that co-design table is balanced, you know, with these different approaches, because there's always a lot of conversation around, I guess, where these two worlds meet, you know, and whether they can work harmoniously or not. And it sounds like what you're doing is finding that place of connection, which is in itself a great way to, I guess, build a foundation for anything that's to do with well-being and mental health. You know?
Definitely, and I'd like to, talking about acknowledgements, so Professor Tani Kaiai developed the original proposal which focused on engagement from the start. So I've been the person that's been the vehicle to enable that to happen with our stakeholders. So we've just, I think you're right, Rara, in terms of the way it was kind of taken over.
Beautiful.
How we move.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. We follow the wairua.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. You never go wrong.
You never go wrong that way. Yeah.
So kia ora for that question, but yeah, it's
kia
my
ora.
question.
I've got a note here around, I guess, a relatively well-known model, Te Whare Tapawhā. So how have you brought this framework into your mahi?
I think I might pass that to Sandra. She's got some real deep ideas on that one.
Yeah, so we're familiar with Te Whare Tapawhā, but when I wasn't, at a time when I was talking with Mason Jury, you know, he was professor then, he's Sir Mason now, but he said he drew a square on a piece of paper, he drew the model around it, talked about it, and the next day he moved on. So I'd like to say that that's what we are doing as well. We're incorporating that thinking, but we have gone deeper and broader, and we're thinking about all of the other connections that are not described in Te Whare Tapawhā, because those are not the only dimensions. So we talked about Dr. Pauroto in one of the wānanga. He said he knows of more than 300 dimensions of the brain from his tohunga perspective. So that's where we've got Whare Tapawhā from 4 corners to 360 dimensions. And he said that's not all that is known, but that's what he could recall at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'd just like to say, you know, it's a great model,
Yeah.
but Mason Jury himself says that we need to move on, develop more, think harder, think deeper, and learn more about Mātauranga Māori and learn about how we can use the deeper models and the deeper thinking to advance what we want to do. So that's where we're at.
Which is great timing for AI, I think.
Yeah.
You know, they're starting to become, from what I know, also no expert in AI, but from what I know being in this space, the layers are starting to be bred, you know, that the time has come for all of the mahi that, you know, in the tech space, likewise, you know, in Te Ao Māori and Mātauranga Māori, I think, as I keep repeating, it's very exciting mahi, you know, that you're working on.
It's evolving, and for all people involved. And so, I think Māori, you've got a problem. I keep saying Māori though. Māori. So
I've got to
aroha mai
explain it.
whānau.
I understand that.
Oh, you've got to explain it, okay. Aroha mai, yes, sorry.
So, if I look at how we arrived here, there are already dimensions. And so we mentioned Tā Mason Jury. There's also other models like Rose Pere and Te Wheke. There's also Mātauranga Māori models like Professor Ty Black. He's known to create many models and frameworks, and in actual fact he has a book on Mātauranga Māori models and frameworks. And inside of that book that he writes, there are many different concepts. But personally, I just want to throw it out there actually. I'm just in the process of completing my professional doctorate, and my topic is based around atiatiratanga. And atiatiratanga is a gift that was taken directly from Io Matua and inside of the kites that he held. So there are many stories, and everyone shares stories because everything is based on narratives. And we're all born with the narratives. So every one of us that is created, we had a choice before we even got here. So that's that story. And then we had a creation story. And then after the creation story, we had a parent story. And out of that came Ranginui and Papatūnuku. So there are many stories. And those are all frameworks. Hence the reason I said earlier in my karakia, we're here to support the neutron, the new cube, ara kare marama nā kupu Pākehā. the taonga that is being created to support the mental well-being of our people, but the frameworks are still to be looked at. And so, yes, I've created a tool that is looking at the same thing of growing from the heavens down to earth, from earth up to the heavens. And that tool is called Atua Tiratanga. No different to how Mason got his little square box. I guess in terms of me, I was born in it and bred in it, and it's now become a way of life. So as Margaret was saying, the kaupapa is around the brain, and Sandy is saying Pauroto's ideology of 300 dimensions, no different to me. The same thing. Within this brain are all the little neurons. And we just liken it to laser lights that spark as soon as an idea comes. And this Atua Tiratanga is no different. And it's created out of the 12 houses of your matua. And then it's created downline into 12 again. So we go deeper than ever, and we go beyond the thought patterns of our people. But I think I'll leave it there, because that should be enough. Hey, just that is enough, otherwise we might drown.
I feel like we're just getting started, but I am mindful that we are on the time.
Yes, and I think that's enough for now, because Margaret will be able to enhance when she carries on in her rangahau. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
This is a beautiful kōrero, but I know that we are getting the round up, so maybe before we, or before I close us off, Margaret, I might just, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we close our session off?
Working together.
Yeah, I think I wanted, somebody was saying, putting the accolades on me, and I removed those accolades and say it's a collective effort for the stakeholders who are all involved. We have stakeholders who are experts in mental health research that are Māori within the team, and they're located here in Auckland as well as Bay of Plenty or Te Moana Toi. We have whānau in terms of hapu iwi all involved, and then we also have community groups that are contributing for Mātauranga Māori. So I think he honu head very deep in terms of tōhunga knowledge, Mātauranga Māori knowledge, and whānau hapu iwi knowledge. So I'm just really grateful to be able to have this opportunity for this type of work to be shared to the wider audience in Aotearoa. And on top of that, we will be going to Singapore in August, and we get the opportunity to host an Indigenous AI session there. And this has been a little bit of a prototype practice of how we might do a panel meeting.
Yeah, we're doing well. Might need a timer. Maybe that's my fault, though.
But, he tino koa. O te kaupapa tēnei wā.
Ka pai.
Well,
So,
that's
Margaret,
us for today. Yeah, I'm going to quickly do a summary and then we'll close off in karakia. But again, very much an honour and a privilege to be sitting along all three of you here today, and those who couldn't be here with us. This mahi is absolutely groundbreaking. So thank you for spending your time and your knowledge and resources, on this mahi, and yeah, we look forward to where it all goes. Yeah.
Pai.
Kia ora.
ka pai. Nō reira, anei rā mātou te matua whaia tama te wairua tapu. Ka tuku tonu i wēnei whakamoemiti ki a koutou. I taia e koutou te whakaputa i te hā o koutou wairua ki roto i tēnei kaupapa. Nō reira kia whakatapuhia koutou ēnei kōrero i runga i te mana o te matua whaia tama te wairua tapu me ngā ānei rapono. Ko koutou hei tautoko mai, kororia ki o koutou ingoa tapu. Āmine.
Āmine.
Āmine. Kia ora
Kia
tātou.
ora.
That wasn't what we practiced.
It's pretty close.
You were in the practice.